Friday, the 11th of April. I am Busi Namafai, and this is your Frontier Opening Bell, the end of a very tumultuous week. Of course, that tumult's not over yet. Just coming in this morning, Friday, China announced that it's going to impose that 125% tariff on U.S. goods. And that's the latest in the face-off between Washington and Beijing. So that's where we are this morning, with the bond market tanking, the U.S. Treasury major sell-off being reported by two of the biggest holders, China and Japan. Then, of course, we saw the dollar melting yesterday. The dollar index, the DXY, down more than 1%. That's no good news for the United States. But this is how we are this morning, Thursday. Let's go back, piggyback on West and the rest of the African markets, starting with Nigeria. The market recovered 0.58% on the equity side. The banking and insurance index went up more than 2.5%, roughly 3% on Thursday. The BRVM came back strongly 1.5%. The Egyptian market finished the week Thursday 2.5%, roughly speaking, 30,810 on the EGX 30 until Sunday when Cairo reopens. The Nairobi market was 1.75%, a very big rally. Then you have the GSE back very strongly, beating the rest of the continent, 4.31% as investors try to dive for cover in emerging and frontier markets. And of course, you saw yesterday, Wall Street finished in the negative territory. But that's where we are this morning, Friday, as when everyone's just looking for a TGIF. What else do I have on my radar? Of course, we have the news about the listing of private placement listing on the Nigerian NESE OTC, 11.16 billion shares of infrastructure credit company. That's InfraCredit PLC. That brought additional 64.20 billion naira onto the market value of that over-the-counter market. Just to let you know about that very quickly. Let's move on to the headlines across the East Africa. Of course, everyone is looking at the Ethiopian progress being made on its markets, talking about green and bond and green bond financing and all of that. Now, expanding relationships and partnerships that will help the markets, the capital markets, gain more ground, still fresh. The FSD Africa says he signed a deal, an MOU with the Ethiopian Security Exchange, the ESX, for market development. There will be technical partnerships to be provided. There's some funding support that FSD Africa will bring into the table, as well as strategies to get the ESX on a stronger footing. Down south in Equity Bank of Kenya, according to notification we got from the PAPSS, which is headquartered in Ghana, that's the Pan-African Payment System. Equity Bank has now joined the network of the PAPs. That will be for local currency, those who are trading intra-Africa trade, and you can do that in local currency, the Kenyan shilling, with every other country on the continent, because the network now includes Equity Bank. There are more banks that are onboarded that the PAP system. More progress for the intra-Africa trade. Uganda and Tanzania's trade mission for this year is kicking off in Kampala. That's the economic and business capital of Uganda. Then you've got Kenya signing a 5-year energy deal with Israel. That's bringing some fresh hands on board. Kenya is not just Africa, but the global leader when it comes to renewable energy. 93% of Kenya's energy is coming through renewable, a very big a leading position there in green energy that Kenya is providing for the continent and globally speaking. Back in Ethiopia, gold exports is expected to soar 560%, about $2.7 billion for the year 2024 and 2025. And finally, in the Horn of Africa, Somalia says it's done $306.5 million debt relief deal with the Arab Monetary Fund. That's the IMF. Those are the headlines within that corridor. Let's move to West Africa, where the Afreximbank President Benedict Orama was in Abuja on Thursday for the opening of the Afreximbank's Africa Trade Center, the AATC, the first of such 9 centers that the DFI is looking to set up across major capitals on the continent to promote intra-Africa trade. Rama also stated yesterday that the Africa Trade Center is set soon to be opened in Switzerland. Remember, we saw the opening of the Africa Trade Center in the United States just a few months ago in New York, that is specifically. Now the foothold in Europe will be in Switzerland. And Orama says the approval for that is already being put together. And of course, I just talked about the private placement of infra credits. That is one major listing that we had. That took the total shares of the company listed on the NESD to about 26.421 billion ordinary shares. Let's move on. Czech president opened a Czech-built 71.5 million euros hospital in Ghana, West Africa, while Senegal's Sangoma offshore oil field achieved a record 3.08 million barrels per day in the month of March. That came through 3 vessels that were involved in that. Sangoma says it did a record output, 3.08 million barrels per day at the end of March. Let me walk you through the Southern Africa's region with congratulations to RMB Private Bank being named South Africa's best private bank at the 2025 Euro Money Awards in Europe. That's congratulations to the RMB. Still in the markets there, the GSE listed Purple Group says its profit soared 204% as Easy Equities drives the growth for the past year. In the meantime, Lesotho says it's working to remove barriers to the operations of Starlink in the company owned by Elon Musk. And that's according to the Prime Minister, Matekane. And the tariff chaos by Donald Trump is not over yet. And that's according to Jim Buckhead. He's the head of global oil trading at the S&P Global Commodities Insight. Oil prices tanking below the $60 a barrel for WTI on Thursday. The London Brent holding it around $63 a barrel. A very brutal week for the global oil markets, looking at the impact of the tariff on global economic growth and demand expectations of oil as a major energy source. In Mozambique, rice imports rose 38% because local production is tumbling. And finally, Zimbabwe says it has issued 311 million treasury bonds in US dollars, that is, to pay 740 white farmers whose lands were grabbed under the administration of former President Robert Mugabe. And finally, in North Africa, IOSCO, that's the International Organization for Securities Commission, says it's hosting its second market-based finance conference with the International Monetary Fund at the forthcoming World Bank IMF Summit meetings, which is taking place in Washington starting on Sunday. April 21st is the IOSCO's IMF conference. You want to tag online and be part of that. 29 French companies, however, are exploring industrial transport investment opportunities in Egypt, the biggest economy in that region, while the country's reported inflation headline racing to 13.6% for the past month. That's no good news for President Al-Sisi's administration. And finally, the EFDB says he has appointed on a pro bono basis, that is, the UK parliamentarian Andrew Mitchell. He will serve as a senior advisor for resource mobilization and policy issues to the DFI based in Côte d'Ivoire. And those are your headlines in the market roundup for Friday, the 11th of April. I am Bosin Namofai. Enjoy the rest of the day, lay back the weekend, and let's get together on Monday.